हरे कृष्ण। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निधि नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी भाष्याददेशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Hare Krishna. So welcome all the devotees for today's Bhagavatam reading. You can stop sharing the screen. Yes, I'll share my screen. One second. Okay, so we'll be reading from the introduction. It might take like some time to read, but I think it is important that we read the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam also before we jump into the reading the verses from the first chapter. So for a couple of days we'll be reading this and understanding this. It might be a little philosophical, but if you pay a little attention, you all will be able to understand this. And maybe different devotees, I would request that different participants can take the turn to read. I'll start and then I'll call out the name, different people, and then you can read one paragraph. Okay, so please pay attention. The conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. Srimad Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There is no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as a controller, because a controller cannot be impersonal. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, is impersonal to some extent, but ultimately the chief executive head is a person, and the impersonal feature of government is subordinate to the personal feature. So, without a doubt, whenever we refer to control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature, because there are different controllers for different managerial positions. There may be many small gods. According to Bhagavad Gita, any controller who has some specific extraordinary power is called a Vibhuti Mat Sattva, or controlled controller empowered by the Lord. There are many Vibhuti Mat Sattvas, controllers or gods with various specific powers. And the absolute truth is one without a second. The Srimad Bhagavatam designates the absolute truth or the Samam Bonam as the Param Satyam. Okay, so this is how the Bhagavatam begins. It begins with all this Param Satyam Dhimahi. So, what is this Param Satya? So, Prabhupada clarifies here in the introduction that we don't call Param Satya as God. That conception of God is different versus Param Satya. Param Satya means the absolute truth. Param Satya. That is different. God, there might be many gods. The literal meaning of Ishwar or God, in one sense, like a specific term is Ishwar. Ishwar means controller. So there might be different controllers and there are different spheres, within their limited power, but they control within certain domain. So that person can also be called God or controller or Ishwar like that. But when we talk about this Param Satyam, the Bhagavatam begins with Param Satyam Dhimahi. Then that is a different understanding. It is not as same as like as same as we call someone as God. Param Satyam is something different. So that is the point. Another point here is making is that the Param Satya, when you're talking who is like the supreme controller, who controls everyone and nobody controls him, one of the criteria like that. So then when we talk about the controller means it should be person. So when you're talking about the Param Satya, it is a person. It cannot be impersonal understanding, like unlike some traditions and some school of thoughts. They believe that ultimate the Param Satya is impersonal. Ultimately, it is all some light, some energy or something like that. But Prabhupada is making the point when you say Param Satya means it's a controller, and then controller has to be a person. So Param Satya is a person, God is a person, and it is not limited to only this term God, but Param Satyam is much bigger and broader concept that we in the devotees will understand. Okay, so hope this is clear. Now let us read the another paragraph. Who wants to read? Somebody wants to volunteer? Okay, nobody wants to volunteer. Then I have to volunteer to pick some of you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I can read.
Yes, God Mother.
The author of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, first offers his respectful obeisances unto the Param Satyam, the absolute truth. And because the Param Satyam is the ultimate source of all energies, the Param Satyam is the supreme person. The gods or the controllers are undoubtedly persons, but the Param Satyam from whom the gods derives power of control is the supreme person. The Sanskrit word Ishwar, controller, conveys the import of God, but the Supreme Person is called the Parameshwara or the Supreme Ishvara. The Supreme Person or Parameshwara is the Supreme Conscious Personality, and because he does not derive any power from any other source, he is supremely independent. In the Vedic literatures, Brahma is described as the supreme god or the head of all other gods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna. But the Srimad Bhagavatam confirms that even Brahma is not independent as far as his power and knowledge are concerned. He received knowledge in the form of the Vedas from the Supreme Person who resides within the heart of every living being. That Supreme Personality knows everything directly and indirectly. Individual, infinitesimal persons who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality may know directly and indirectly everything about their bodies or external features, but the Supreme Personality knows everything about his external and internal features. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so there's a little bit more understanding on Param Satya. So this is how the Bhagavatam begins. The author of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva, in the beginning, he Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, like that he offers his obeisances, and that is how we start explaining about this Param Satya. Now, already Prabhupada explained that it has to be person, uh, and is not. So, of course, we can use the term as God or Ishwar, but the Param Satyam is Param Ishwara. Param Ishwara means who controls everyone, but nobody controls him. Right? He is complete in himself. He does not derive any power from any other source. And Prabhupada is giving the example like even Brahmaji in some of the verses has been addressed as Bhagavan. So Bhagavan or Ishwar, meaning like he is also controller, he is the creator, but he is the secondary creator. So, but Brahmaji is not independent in his power and knowledge. He also receives knowledge and power from someone. So that someone who supplies to everyone, but he doesn't need from anyone. That is called Param Satya. Okay, now let us understand a little bit more about what is Param Satya. Okay, next.
I can go through.
Yeah. Yes.
The words Janmadhyasya Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1 suggests that the source of all production, maintenance, or destruction is the same Supreme Conscious Person. Even in our present experience, we can know that nothing is generated from inert matter, but inert matter can be generated from the living entity. For instance, by contact with the living entity, the material body develops into a working machine. Men with a poor fund of knowledge mistake the bodily machinery to be the living being, but the fact is that the living being is the basis of the bodily machine. The bodily machine is useless as the basis the bodily machine is useless as soon as the living spark is away from it. Similarly, the original source of all material energy is the Supreme Person. This fact is expressed in all the Vedic literatures, and all the exponents of spiritual science have accepted this truth. The living force is called Brahman, and one of the greatest acharyas, teachers, namely Sripada Shankaracharya, has preached that Brahman is substance, whereas the cosmic world is category. The original source of all energies is the living force, and he is logically accepted as the Supreme Person. He is therefore conscious of everything past, present, and future, and also of each and every corner of his manifestations, both material and spiritual. An imperfect living being does not even know what is happening within his own personal body. He eats his food but does not know how this food is transformed into energy or how it sustains his body. When a living being is perfect, he is aware of everything that happens, and since the Supreme Person is all perfect, it is quite natural that he knows everything in all detail. Consequently, the perfect personality is addressed in the Srimad Bhagavatam as Vasudeva, or one who lives everywhere in full consciousness and in full possession of his complete energy. All of this is clearly explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the reader has ample opportunity to study this critically.
Okay, now this is another one. It has been explained here. Janmadi Ashyato Anvaya Dadrachardesu Avignaswarat. This is how Bhagavatam begins. Janmadi Ashya, meaning Janma Adi. Jan means the creation, Adi, and etc. etc. So basically, it is referred to creation, maintenance, and annihilation. Srishti, Sthiti, and Pralaya. So this is called Janmadi Ashya. The source of production, maintenance, and destruction. That is called Param Satya, absolute truth. So many times we'll read this word, all through the Bhagavatam and various other literatures. Param Satya, Param Satya. So what is this Param Satya means? This is the understanding. From whom the creation, maintenance, and the destruction is the source of all of that. That is Param Satya. Now, when we talk about all this production or creation, it won't happen from the inert matter. Prabhupada is bringing again this point. You know, like there has to be the physical contact, then only the material body develops into like full-fledged and functional machinery like that. So, in the same way, the original source of all the material energy is the Supreme Person. So, you see, from the very first line of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the introduction, Prabhupada is clarifying that and is trying to help us to remove that misconception that God is impersonal, God is some kind of light, some energy, something. No, God is a person. Param Satya is a controller, is a supreme controller. We are also tiny controllers. We are also tiny knower. We also know. We know about our own body, little bit, not fully. Something we'll know, and then it gets more refined, then probably we know a little bit more. But you can know only about your body, what is going on. You're hungry, you're emotional, you're angry, whatever. We know a little bit about ourselves. So we also know, and God also know. But God not only knows his own body, but he knows everybody. Nitya Nityanam, Chetana Chetananam. So that is what is God's control, God's knowledge, unlimited. So when we ascribe all these different features to God or to Paramsat, to be very use the very specific word, Paramsat. So he's all knowing, he's all powerful, he control, he's the supreme controller. Then automatically it implies that it has to be a person. This person is not some ordinary person like you and me, but he is a supreme person, transcendental personality. That is Param Satya. So Prabhupada is bringing that understanding from the very beginning. Right, like that. So, yes, we can read maybe one more. Small. Who wants to go next?
Can I read, Prabhu?
Yeah.
In the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay. So that is why we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, or specifically this introduction. But Prabhupada, masterfully, he has inserted the, the short sketch about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. So it is important to understand because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been a big propounder of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is important before we understand Srimad Bhagavatam, we know a little bit about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So now on, we'll from here on, like Prabhupada explains about the little short sketch about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. Maybe we'll read just one more quick paragraph. Somebody wants to read?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll start. It is imperative that one learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. The person Bhagavatam is one who is very life is Srimad Bhagavatam in practice. Since Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagwan and Bhagavatam in person and in sound. Therefore, his process of approaching the Srimad Bhagavatam is practical for all people of the world. It was his wish that Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happened to take their birth in India.
Okay, now this is another important thing that Prabhupada is saying, that it is imperative that one learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from person Bhagavatam. So the two things has been explained. There is a book Bhagavatam and there is a person Bhagavatam. So if you want to understand the book Bhagavatam, we have to approach a, a person Bhagavat. Now, who is a person Bhagavat? The person who practice the principle of Srimad Bhagavatam. He is a person Bhagavata. So they are also like great devotees. They are called the Bhagavatas, Mahabhagavatas, like that. So this is how one should learn. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the absolute personality of Godhead to teach us all that. Right? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire was Prithvi te ache yatanagaradigram sarvatra prachar hoy bamaranam. He has predicted that Prithvi te ache yatanagaradigram on the entire planet Earth, my name, this message of Bhagavatam, the holy name will spread. 500 years back, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made this prediction. So Prabhupada is saying here that it was his wish that Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happen to take their birth in India. So Bharat Bhumi te Janma hoilo yaar, Janma sarthak kari kar paropkar. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is basically urging everyone who has taken birth in Bharat Bhumi. He says, if you have taken the birth in this holy land of Bharatvarsh, which is a very, very pious land, then it is your duty first to Janma Sarthak Kari, you understand all this, and then Karo Paropkar, then go and educate others about this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as I said, like has been a great propounder of the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is important that we read and learn a little bit about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. And that is what Prabhupada has given in the introduction. Okay, so we'll stop with this for today and we'll continue to read more tomorrow.